Welcome to our weekly Mitzvah Shabbos program. A few weeks ago, I showed you hundreds of notebooks that Rabbi Mindel used to take dictation when he went into the Rebbe on all Michtovim Klolim, all English letters, and most of the Hebrew letters. He went home and he composed the letters. So this week I opened up a notebook. I showed you, it looks like this. And inside, I cannot read shorthand, but there was a line on top where it says Ramash. Ramash means the Rebbe before he was Rebbe. He was called the Ramash. And it says Erev Shavuos, 1948. I guess it seems like that the Rabbi Mindel took also dictation before the Nesius. And the Rebbe wrote a short letter to a big chassid. This chassid, I know, is a Talmud of the Mezritcher Maggid, and he was a colleague of the Alter Rebbe. So I was wondering, what does that mean? I saw the name. The Rebbe wrote a letter to a Talmud of Mezritcher Maggid, hundreds of years ago. So I gathered together something here that I will show you, that I will explain to you. In the Igros Kodesh of the Rebbe, Volume 3, page 114, there is a letter dated Erev Shavuos 1949, and that's addressed to Rabbi Avrom Kalisker. The letter was written in Yiddish, and the Rebbe encouraged him strongly to join the efforts of Mekes L'Inyan Chinuch to Harav Avrom Kalisker. And the Rebbe writes like this, that's in Yiddish, and I'll translate that into English. We are about to receive the Torah in which love your neighbor as your friend is a great principle, and you should surely help him, is one of its commandments. So how long will this go on? Either I should help you in your paint business, or it's already time, and has been for a long time, that you should work together with me in the Merkez L'Inyan Chinuch. Then the Rebbe continues writing to him. This is only in Yiddish. What is the purpose of postponing and delaying another week, another month? Gvald, Rebbe Avrom. When will I begin to think about what is truly good for me, and you do the same regarding yourself? As I state in Igros, if you look at it. So I gather this is, I thought that this had a connection. The publisher of the Igros, he doesn't write who Rabbi Avrom Kalisker was. So who is Avrom Kalisker? We know that there's three Avrom Kalisker. One was a Talmud of the Mezritcher Maggid, and he was very close to the Alter Rebbe. And he was Meiser, the Alter Rebbe was Meiser Nefesh for Rabbi Avrom Kalisker. He moved to Eretz Yisrael with Reb Mendel Haridoker. Years later, he had a machlokes with Alter Rebbe. So that we know of Avrom Kalisker. But who is this Avrom Kalisker? Then there was another Avrom Kalisker, a chassid of the Alter Rebbe. Because of his great gayness, he was called another one, Avrom Kalisker. Then there was a third Avrom Kalisker in the time of Tzemach Tzedek. He was a tremendous Gaon, and he was mentioned throughout the Tshuvas of the Tzemach Tzedek. His name was Ashkenazi, but he was called Kalisker. But who is our Avram Kalisker? Who did the Rebbe write over here in 1949, a year before the Histalkus of the Frierdiker Rebbe? So let me explain to you something interesting. We find the answer there was a Hagdosha. You know that now the Igros, the letters, of the Rebbe, the Igros are in books bound. Years ago, in the 50s, every week they gave out a pamphlet. It's like a green. I think I have it somewhere. I should have shown it to you. But I have a few of Pasha Emor, Pasha Kedoshim every week to speak in the shuls. Then they gathered together and they made a book. So there is a Akdosha where it says Le'ilu Nishmas Hatomim Reb Avram Abba Ben Zelda HaKoyin Olav HaSholim Helderman Mikalisk. He was nifter in B'Yom Vov Chav Beis Tevis Tov Shin Yud Tes. And this pamphlet is Nitfas Al Yidei Hatmimim the Newark Yichyu. Now, what's the story with this Avram Kalisker? Rabbi Avram Kalisker, Rabbi Avram Helderman, he was born in Kalisk in the year 1890. He was born to parents. His father was named Rabbi Yishaya, and his mother was named Zelda. He had 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and they became orphans very young age. And this Rabbi Avram Kalisker, being a child, was sent to Lubavitch, where he learned in the Chadorim, and he ate teg at the house of Rebbetzin Rivke. And I think from then they called him Rabbi Avram Kalisker. Now, eating teg means nowadays Bachrim are in yeshiva. There's a dormitory, there is a place to sleep and a place to eat. Those days, Chadorim, Bachrim didn't have. They learned in Cheder, but they didn't have what to eat, so they ate teg. One time a balabos invited this one, a balabos invited this bacher. Sometimes even they missed supper. So they ate teg. So this Rabbi Avram ate by Rebbetzin Rivke. Eventually, however, he lost touch with Lubavitch. He moved to America, and slowly he dropped Yiddishkeit. But he had the Chassidische Pasha, a Chassidische Bendel, as we say. But he was not religious. But he did have a Chassidische Bendel. So we see when the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America in 1929, he offered to drive. He volunteered to drive the Frierdiker Rebbe around. So he was called Rabbi Avram the Balagole. Rabbi Avram Kalisker was called Rabbi Avram the Balagole. As a matter of fact, I think Rabbi Jacobson, Olav HaSholem, once said, if I remember, that Rosh Hashanah, the Frierdiker Rebbe, when he couldn't go to Tashlich. We have a minhag to go to Tashlich on Rosh Hashanah. So he wasn't feeling well. So he went to Aseret Tshuva. So Rabbi Avram Kalisker was the Balagole. He was the driver for the Frierdiker Rebbe. He offered. He loved to do that. He had a Chassidische Bendel, even though he was not religious. So when the Frierdiker Rebbe moved to America, he came to every single Farbrengen. He was not a Shem Shabbos. He even came a Rosh Hashanah. He drove. Of course, the Frierdiker Rebbe didn't like it. Of course. He didn't, but the Frierdiker Rebbe did not say anything. He drove to listen to Tkiyas of the Frierdiker Rebbe. And he said, Rabbi Avram, how can I hear Tkiyas from anybody else? So instead of being merachik him, the Frierdiker Rebbe was very much mekarev him, until eventually, later on, he became a Shem Shabbos. But right now, he was not. So the last Rosh Hashanah, 5709, the Frierdiker Rebbe instructed they should wait for him until he arrives. Wait for Tkiyas. This is unbelievable. And the Frierdiker Rebbe was against, of course, you're not allowed to drive on Rosh Hashanah, but he said wait for him. The Ahavas Yisrael that the Frierdiker Rebbe had. This reminds me, the once I heard from Rabbi Edelman. He was a bocher. So the Rebbe, the Ramash, came down the elevator from the Frierdiker Rebbe in 770, and he saw Rabbi Edelman standing there. So he says, the Rebbe said, the Ramash, do you want to hear something just off the press from the Rebbe? Means from the Frierdiker Rebbe? He said, yeah. So he says the Frierdiker Rebbe said, I don't remember exactly the Lashon, so I'm going to say it in my words. The Frierdiker Rebbe said he was in a shul, I think, and there were a lot of Frum Yidden there, but there was some who were Machal Shabbos. So the religious Jews didn't want to have anything to do with these Machal Shabbos, because it seems if they will, people will think that they like what they're doing, or they're friends with them, and they didn't want to show. They were like merachik them. These were friar people. They had nothing to do with it. But the Frierdiker Rebbe said, I was there, and I was mekarev them. And then the Frierdiker Rebbe told the Rebbe, that's what the Rebbe repeats, that the Frierdiker Rebbe gave a mashal. He says, when a father has a child, and he loves the child, bli gvul, there's no a parent, what one parent would do for one child, 10 children wouldn't do for a parent. The love of a parent to a child is unbelievable. Then the father, let's say, has another child. So the love is unbelievable even more. What if the father has a child which is a special need, or has a mum, born without a hand, without a foot, or special need? That love of a father to that child is even more than a regular child. The same thing also the Frierdiker Rebbe told him, that the Eibishter loves everybody, all Yidden. But a Yid that is a Machal Shabbos, or a Yid that does not turn in mitzvahs, they have a neshama. The Rachmanis, the pity, the love that the Eibishter has to them is unbelievable. It's a Rachmanis on them. It's a pity. They're not Shom Shabbos. But there is a big Rachmanis. So this reminds me here, even though the Frierdiker Rebbe, he knows you're not allowed to drive on Rosh Hashanah, but still he was waiting for him to come to listen to Tkir Shofar. Anyways, so later on, years after the Histalkus of the Frierdiker Rebbe, this Rabbi Avraham came to every Farbringen of our Rebbe in the 1950s, 51, 52, 53. Once he had an accident, a car accident on Shabbos. So he was saying to himself, how can I have an accident when I'm going to a Farbringen? He had that Chassidus Shabendel. We have to understand that. I think without learning Chassidus, it's hard to understand. But we have to learn Chassidus to understand the love of a Yiddish neshama. Now his relationship with our Rebbe, with the Ramash, then started all the way in the beginning. The Frierdiker Rebbe said that he received a letter from Rabbi Avraham with great joy, with deep, heartfelt blessing for complete healing. For a bracha. He gave the bracha. This was delivered through my son-in-law, the Goen and Chassid, Rabbi Menachem Mendel. That's what the fake Rebbe writes. The fake Rebbe goes on to explain that the great powers that a Kohen has, Rabbi Avram Kalisker was a Kohen, that has the blessing other Yidden and encourages him to continue all his good ways. At the Frierdiker Rebbe, the last Simchas Torah, Tovshin Yud, the Frierdiker Rebbe was looking around for guests to give mashke and mezainis by Farbringen. He looked around and he couldn't find him. He's looking for him. Then he said, I'm looking for my customer. Where is Rabbi Avram Kalisker? So Reb Shmuel Leviten remarked then, he is truly the Rebbe's customer. And the Rebbe replied, the Frierdiker Rebbe, that it's customary amongst merchants that when a person comes to ask about their merchandise, they say, Petach, Petach, means fool, fool. What do you understand about merchandise? Even a small amount of my merchandise is worth gold. And the Rebbe then blessed Rebbe Avram. He said, L'chaim u'levracha, he should have a good year. And v'hoya levovam zeh, like he used the pasuk, like it says in Voschanon. That's where it says, Mi yitin v'hoya levovam zeh lahem li yiroisi v'lishmoy es kol mitzvaysai kol hayomim l'man yitav lahem v'livneihem li'olam. The Rebbe then told him that he should have atzlacha, anyways, good life. And the Rebbe wanted him to become a Shomer Shabbos. Now, his relationship with Lubavitch grew after Yud Shvat, where he came to every Farbringen. One by a Farbringen once, the Rebbe, in the beginning, maybe Tovshin Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, the Rebbe spoke to him in Italian, in Italy. I don't know, nobody understood what the Rebbe was saying, it says here. And Rabbi Avram became very emotional, and he took a ring of keys, and he gave them to the Rebbe. The Rebbe returned them, and afterwards, we found out what happened. The Rebbe asked him to start closing his store on Shabbos. And he was torn. On the other hand, he really wanted. And on the other hand, those days, in the early 50s, to keep Shabbos was a tremendous test, tremendous nisayon, as we once spoke in this program then. So at the end, he handed over the keys to the Rebbe, and he said, now the store is yours. It's not my store anymore. So the Rebbe handed him back the keys, and the Rebbe says, I'm returning them to you for only 6 days a week. From then on, Rebbe Avram kept Shabbos. When the Rebbe, Achri Shal Pesach, he came to Farbringen, he came from Newark. Rebbe Avram Kalisker, Rebbe Avram de Balagole, he was called. Because he was the Frierdiker Rebbe's driver. So the Rebbe motioned to him, he should drink l'chaim and wine. This was Achri Shal Pesach. So he went on the table, and then the Rebbe gave him, and he drank wine. After drinking the third cup, Achri Shal Pesach, we drink 4 cups of wine. So after drinking the third cup, and he wanted to eat some matzah, so the Rebbe said, between the third and fourth cup, it's forbidden to eat. By the Seder, it's forbidden. So the Rebbe told him it's forbidden. And he told him to drink another cup. After the fourth cup, the Rebbe said, now being the fourth cup again, and before Kiddush, the first cup, it's forbidden to eat before Kiddush. That's how the Rebbe was with him. And it was later on, Baruch Hashem, he became a Shomer Shabbos. In the winter 1959, he planned to travel to Russia to visit his brother, but unfortunately, he passed away before the trip. Now, this Rabbi Avram Kalisker, he's buried in Anshe Lubavitch section in Newark, where there was a Reb Shalom Ber Gordon, Olav Sholem. He officiated the Levaya. And on this 26th of Adar, 5752, one day before the Rebbe had a stroke, one of his granddaughters passed by the Rebbe, and she said, I'm a granddaughter of Avram Kalisker, the Balagola, who helped the previous Rebbe. Does the Rebbe remember him? So the Rebbe answered, yes. The Rebbe said he was from Newark. And then he had Rabbi Avram had a son who was killed in a war. So the ladies' auxiliary Newark named after him. So anyway, so this you can find in the letters. So we see. I thought I would share with you this story. I found it in one of the pamphlets. So Rabbi Mindel had to do with this, and here we can learn a lesson. The Avas Yisrael, what the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe had to somebody, even though he's a Machal Shabbos, b'far Hesya, but as a Yid, and look what he became of him. Later on, he became a big Baal Tshuva. But to me, this looks like a Amolik Yamaisis, a Balagola, Rabbi Avram Kalisker. And the Rike we can learn here, that how to love every single Eid. And Mitzvah Hashem, next week we'll continue our weekly program. Thank you.